If you are an independent filmmaker, solo content creator, someone who's on an ultra low budget, and you're looking to shoot with anamorphic glass, this video is for you. The lenses from Sirui that I'm looking at are the 35mm, 50mm, 75, 100, and 150 millimeter lens. It's important to understand what anamorphic glass does. So an anamorphic lens is going to squeeze or stretch your image this way, so that when you de-squeeze it, you get more information in frame. For example, this is a 35 anamorphic, this is a 35 spherical. Notice the difference in the field of view, how much we have in frame. The 35 is going to look more like a 22. The 50 is going to look more like a 31. The 75, more like a 47. The 100, a 63 millimeter, and the 150, a 90 millimeter. Next up is the lens flare. When you shine a light at the lens, you get this streak. There are a few variables that will indicate the type of flare that you get. Dead center straight on will give you something like this. And as we move the light around, you can see how that flare behaves. You can sometimes get a flare from a light that's off frame, that's bleeding into your lens, giving a little bit of a ghosting image. This is obviously going to be a stylistic choice for you if you want that flare. What is the workaround to getting rid of the flare? Don't shine a light directly at the lens. Use a lens hood, or if there's just too much light spilling in, then switch up to a spherical lens. Another characteristic of anamorphic lens is the oval bokeh. What I'm talking about is a light out of focus in the background. Instead of a round ball, it becomes more of an oval shape. Now in this lineup, you'll notice that there are two different types of Sirui lenses. There's the Saturn series and the Venus series. The Saturn series only comes in a 35, 50, and 75 millimeter focal length. The Venus comes in those three along with a 100 and a 150. Yes, there's a 135, but I'm not talking about that because that's a 1.8 squeeze. This is 1.6. I'll get into more of that later. Another difference in the Saturn and Venus series is the size and the weight. The Saturn is extremely small, very lightweight. The Venus, very big, very heavy. I've had people tell me they prefer the Venus going handheld because it comes a little bit more stable. I've had people tell me they prefer the Saturn because of it being lightweight. It's definitely easier to mount on a gimbal. And if you notice with the Saturn series, the gears line up. Both of these gears are doing the focus and the aperture. Another difference between these two is the type of flaring that it produces. This is a Saturn. This is the Venus. On the Venus series, the flare is always going to be blue. With the Saturn, it's a decision that you make when you purchase the lens, if you want the blue flare or a neutral. The neutral will take on the color of the source of light. Your squeeze factor is going to be more consistent across the Saturn than it is on the Venus, especially when it comes to the 35, 50, and 75. Take a look at the difference in these two shots. Now, I was told this changes based on your aperture setting, but I prefer the Saturn in this case because it's a constant squeeze. So how do you deal with this squeeze factor? If you're on the Blackmagic cinema camera or the Pixis, it will de-squeeze in camera, not just for the sake of monitoring, but also the file that it produces. If you're using a Lumix or any of the other cameras that may not de-squeeze it in camera, the way that you do that is in your editing software. So for myself, I'm using DaVinci Resolve. So you want to do this on the edit page. Select all the files that you want to de-squeeze. Right click, go into clip attributes. Under video, you're going to look at pixel aspect ratio. In the drop down, you'll see the options for 1.33, 1.5, 1.8. You want to select custom and enter 1.6, and your footage is now de-squeezed and ready to go. The Saturn series lenses have a minimal focusing distance of 3 feet. What that means is anything within 3 feet of the lens is not going to be in focus. The workaround to that is to use a diopter. A diopter set is going to include a ×1, ×2, ×4, and ×10 magnification. The drawback to this is you're not going to get anything in focus with your background. Maybe a little bit with the 1x magnification. It's more of a magnifier to bring the subject or object closer to the camera. You can also move the camera closer to the subject than 3 feet because of that magnification. But you're going to get a lot of background blur, and if that's what you want, that's great, but that is something to keep in mind. On the 100 and 150, it's a shorter focal distance. I believe it's 2 feet on the 100 and a little shy of 2 feet on the 150. I don't know the exact number, but combine that with the focal range of the 150. You get sort of a macro type effect with this lens. Take a look at this shot and how I can get a close-up on these flowers. For comparison, this is that same setup using the 100. I'm not able to get those flowers in focus. I'm about 2 feet away from the flowers, so that's just the point of where I can catch focus. It's not catching focus on the 100. Let's take a look at a real-life application of this. If you were going to make a short film, here's how the different focal lengths work, and especially the combinations. So for these shots, I have the tripod in the same position. We're probably about 8 to 10 feet away from the subject as she's walking from room to room. And here are the different lenses of her doing that same motion. And here's an example of how I can combine footage from the different focal lengths to match, whether it's the 35 to the 75, the 50 to the 100. You may also notice in some of these shots, especially on the 35 and the 50, how the edges are curved. So this is the image right out of camera without anything adjusted. This is the barrel distortion that you're going to get, especially on the 35 and 50. It's a little less prominent on the 75, and it's almost non-existent on the 100 and the 150. You can fix this in post if you want to remove that. Some people prefer that type of look. It's sort of a dreamy, sort of ultra wide angle, fisheye lens type of look. It's distorting reality. But if you want to fix that, there is a way to do that in post. So what you'll do in DaVinci Resolve is under the inspector, you'll see where it says lens correction. Move the distortion slider. Notice what happens as you move it, as it takes it from pin cushion to barrel. You'll get the lines as straight as you can. You see what's happening in the middle of the frame as you do this. I like the idea of the 35 and 75 combination because it was the equivalent of having a 20mm and a 50mm lens. I had no interest in shooting with the 100 and 150. I thought that was too long of a focal length for anamorphic, and it wasn't until I rented them for a series of interviews that I was doing that I fell in love with these lenses because of the background separation between subject and background. I mean, even at f4 or 5.6, you get amazing separation. I favored the 100 so much that I added that to my list. On this project, I shot 85% of my footage with the two Sirui anamorphic lenses, and there were other shots that I did. This was with an old 50mm lens. And then this establishing shot was done with the Osmo Pocket 3. You can definitely mix in footage from other lenses, other cameras. The key thing is keeping that crop factor in place. So earlier I mentioned the 135. I'm not discussing that for two reasons. It's a 1.8 squeeze factor, and I've never shot with it before, so I don't have anything to add about the 135. So if you have used it, let me know what your thoughts are on it, because I'm curious as to why people are sort of not a big fan of that lens. When these lenses first came out, they were a few $1,000s. And then I saw them go down to $900, and now they're down to $450, $500 a piece. That's an amazing price. It's very affordable, especially if you're someone who does this for a living. If you are thinking of getting these lenses, which one are you leaning towards? Have you filmed on these lenses? Which ones are your favorite? Do you have a combination that you prefer to shoot with? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Take care of yourself and each other.